What's up, Desktopers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are back with another video. And today I'm doing my preview and predictions for the 2021 New York Pro. I'm doing the Open Bodybuilding, the 212, and I'm giving you my winner for the Classic Physique as well. So I'm going to start from 10th, go right down to 1st, which is every competitor in that Open Bodybuilding class. And I'm going to do my top 5 for the 212. So let's start with the Opens. I'll start with 10th place. I have Roy Evans. Now, Roy Evans beat about 4 to 5 guys last weekend in Indy. I was actually really impressed. He's making his transition from a classic physique to the open bodybuilding, and I'll break down his physique a little bit. So from the back, looks really good. I mean, really detailed, very impressive, very balanced in those back shots. From the front, really round quads, looks really good there. Probably needs a little bit more muscle overall to be contending with these guys, but from the side, I feel like, while he had the detail, I feel like he needs a bit more thickness to be, placing up in the top 5 in shows like this. But overall, I was very impressed with Roy Evans, and next year, if he continues to make the same sort of gains, I imagine him being in the top 5 in shows like this. In 9th place, Camilo Diaz. Now, this guy is balanced, has really nice shape, brings in really good detail. Did quite well at the Indy last weekend. I have him in 9th. In 8th, I have Morgan Asti. Now, I predicted him a little bit higher than he actually placed last weekend in Indy. He was enormous. Apparently, he's 6'3". I said 6'5" last weekend. I've heard numerous amounts of heights and weights that he actually is, but I heard he's over 300 pounds at 6'3", and you can see it. He is absolutely enormous, but his physique does not flow very well, especially from the front, and he does lack a bit of detail on those quads as well, because he's probably the hardest guy. He's probably going to be the hardest guy in the show, vascularity everywhere. But just really lacks some details in certain body parts and just doesn't flow all that well. But it's hard to place him because he's huge, one of the biggest guys, the biggest guy really in the show. He's the hardest guy in the show. It's hard to really, push him down to last place. But where do you place a guy like that really sort of lacks the shape and lacks the detail in the quads? Let me know where you'd have him placing, but I have him in 8th in this lineup. In 7th, I have Dorian Haywood. Now, it's a bit of a drop from last weekend. I thought he looked really good last weekend. I thought he maybe could have been a slight amount crisper, but he brings a lot of round, full muscle in that upper body. In the legs, his quads really do, I suppose, let him down a little bit. If he had sort of quads to match that upper body or close to matching that upper body, I think he'd place a lot better, but I have him in 7th here. In 6th, I have Blessing Awodibu. So I think he'll actually improve overall because he looked a lot better at finals than he did at prejudging last weekend in Indy, where he placed 3rd. But I think this lineup is a bit tougher. Even though there's less guys, it's more, I suppose, top heavy with guys like Nick Walker in the lineup as well. So I think he's going to improve. He's going to bring that fullness. He's going to be overall a bit bigger. Where he does fall down is obviously from the waist down, the legs, and it's not just for quads. I thought his hamstrings were actually better than they were on stage. But in the upper body, he looked really good at finals. It's just those legs that sort of need to come up. Overall, I thought it was actually a pretty decent pro debut from Blessing Awodibu, but obviously all the hype sort of made it seem like it was a really unsuccessful pro debut. In 5th, I have Hassan Mostafa. Now, this guy, by most people, is predicted to be in the top 3, maybe even contending for a win here. He looks absolutely enormous. He's got the biggest quads and legs in the world, but he actually had to do Ramadan right up until a couple of days ago. So he's only, I suppose it's convenient for this filling out process and everything, but I assume that's why he didn't do Indy last weekend. But I don't know. I think it's sort of poor planning to do Ramadan for, a month prior to actually, stepping on stage. So it's pretty rough. And for those who don't know, Ramadan is basically you can't eat or drink during daylight hours. So luckily he's able to make that change in the last few days, but could that cause issues as well, going from being, on a nighttime schedule, basically being on night shift all the time, to being on a daytime schedule? It's got to make it pretty tough. So Hassan is coming in here. I think he looks fantastic considering he has been in that sort of situation and doing that. He's out training in the Dragon's Lair, which is Flex Lewis's gym out in Las Vegas. And overall, he's looking pretty good. He recently just released his posing footage as well, just yesterday. And, while he looks detailed, he looks good. In the lineup, he has very narrow clavicles, which, against a guy like Justin Rodriguez, who's the opposite, he has some of the widest clavicles in the IFBB Pro League. I think that'll sort of show up his weakness a little bit. In 4th place, I have Muhammad El Aman. Now, he actually competed last weekend, placed 2nd. Very impressive. He wasn't too far off Justin Rodriguez, really. But I think Justin is a little bit prettier. He's got the slightly wider shoulder structure. I think overall he's just a little bit more complete. Just flows a little bit better overall, I think Justin did. But Muhammad, he's got some great quads. He's got some really good points, and he packs a lot of muscle. So he could definitely place top 2 again here. But I'm just thinking there's a few other guys that might just place ahead of him. Now, this is sort of going to be a surprise for some people, but I have An Win placing up in third place. Now, no one's really been talking about him. I haven't really seen any photos been posted of him. This is the last photo that was actually posted up. This is on the 1st of May, standing next to Austin Carr out there training in Dragon's Lair as well. And I think that, people say, oh, will he bring condition? Oh, if he comes in hard, he could place high. He's been coming in hard the last couple of years, really. He's been actually pretty consistent. Last year, he looked really good. Year before, I thought he looked really good as well without getting that pro win. So I think this year he could definitely make it to the Olympia stage, whether it's on points, whether it's on winning a show. He's just so close. He's just not far off at all. Training out in the Dragon's Lair, obviously, it's a great environment to prep for a show. I think that An Win will place top 3 here. In second, I have Nick Walker. Now, it's hard to put Nick second after this photo just went up yesterday looking like an absolute mutant. Like, he looks crazy here. Now, you can't see the details. When you look at the chest, you can't see the lines through it, which you haven't been able to see too much through his prep anyway. But overall, he does look very conditioned. So as long as Nick has the details, he can certainly win this show. And really, my opinion doesn't matter whatsoever. And I don't know what he's going to look like on stage compared to a Justin Rodriguez. But it's sort of almost the same problem that Hassan's going to have as well in this lineup, is that they're competing against Justin Rodriguez, who's just coming off the win at the Indy, and he's got the very wide clavicles, got a huge structure on stage. Nick's a little bit the opposite. He's a little bit shorter than what you think, and while he's very thickly muscled, and that can, in its own right, beat out a bigger guy, it's going to be very interesting to see how they match up, how they look standing next to each other on stage. But we did see him obviously compete against each other last year in Chicago, where Justin Rodriguez placed second, Nick Walker placed fourth, and you could have made the case for Nick Walker being higher as well. So I think it's going to be a very close battle, but obviously in first place, Justin Rodriguez. Now, we know what he's bringing to the stage. He looked great last week in Indy. We know that's a top 10 Olympian physique. So if you're saying that Nick Walker is going to beat Justin, you got to basically say that Nick Walker is top 10 at least quality in Mr. Olympia. If not, probably you'd have to say he's top 8 or so, which is a massive thing for a young guy in his second, pro bodybuilding season, not even a year after making his pro debut. So I have Justin Rodriguez. So I've got Justin Rodriguez for the win in the 2021 Indy Pro. Let me know your top 5, your top 10 in the comments below. Who do you think will win? Or just give me a top 3. I'm really interested to find out who you guys think will win that 2021 New York Pro. So let's move on to the 212s, and it's another stacked 212 lineup, slightly weaker than the last weekend. I think a lot of the guys, in the open and in the 212s, it didn't do so well last weekend. A few of them were sort of dropped out and maybe are focusing on other shows or whatever. So it's sort of condensed these lineups a little bit. The quality's still really high, but we don't have last weekend's winner, Tony Burton, who has some other commitments as well. So we'll start at 5th, and up 5th, I've got Justin Randall, came 6th last weekend. This dude, he's beaten guys that he really shouldn't beat. He's very short in stature. He came in very hard, lots of really good thick muscle, and yeah, really impressed me last weekend. So credit to him. So Justin Randall in 5th. In 4th, I have Derek Oslin. Now, last weekend, I believe he slipped to 9th place. He's coming in about 7 pounds down compared to last weekend. And I think that's the right move, because last weekend, I don't think he was over 4 or anything like that. I just think that he wasn't maybe quite crisp enough. While he did have some details in his quads that you'd normally look at and go, wow, he's in condition, it just didn't quite show up on stage in terms of that real sharp conditioning that we know he can bring to the stage. So Derek Oslin has fantastic shape. He came, I think it was 8th in last year's 212 Olympia. He'll definitely be looking to correct last week's mistakes and come in a little bit harder this weekend. So I think that Derek Oslin will, jump a few people that he actually got beaten by in Indy last weekend, and he'll place 4th here. In 3rd, I have Noel Adami. Now, he placed 5th last weekend. I thought he could have been higher as well. While his structure and everything isn't as pretty as the guys that placed ahead of him, he is packed full of muscle. He's in pretty damn good condition as well. And when you see this dude from the side, he has that crazy hanging hamstrings, just packed full of muscle. He actually won Indy 2 years ago. Pretty impressed with how he looked last weekend, and thought he could have been higher. So we've got him in 3rd place here. But honestly, he could contend for the win. And people aren't even factor him in as, one of those contenders. But we do know there's apparently going to be a different head judge this weekend. It's going to be Tyler Mannion instead of Steve Weinberger. So that could change things up. And that could change things up in the top 2 as well. And in 2nd place, I have Nathan Epler. Now, he came 2nd last weekend to Tony Burton in his pro debut. So super impressive from Nathan. And he looked great. Like, he honestly deserved well and truly to be in that top 3. I actually had him placing 3rd after prejudging, but I didn't see as much of a final, so maybe improved a little bit more as well. But you can make a case for him really being first, second, or third last weekend. Very, very impressed with that pro debut. He's got a great shape. I love his shape personally. He's a taller guy in the 212, so his ceiling is maybe limited in that class. He does say that he wants to move to open eventually. And yeah, this week I've got him in second place. The same as last weekend, which would be a little bit heartbreaking for Nathan, but he could definitely win this show. And in first place, I have John Jewett. Now, John Jewett placed third last weekend, so it's almost like a little bit of an upset. But John Jewett, I think, has more that he can actually correct than Nathan Epler from last weekend. I think John Jewett was super, super hard, super dry. Really, I thought he looked fantastic. And if he got the win, you wouldn't have heard any complaints from me. But I think that he could be a little bit fuller. Now, obviously, there's trade-offs. If you're a little bit fuller, maybe you come in a little bit off. But I think he's so hard that when he actually does fill up, and a lot of pro bodybuilders and top amateurs know this, when you're really, really conditioned, it's hard to mess it up. It's hard to hold fluid. It's hard to really just come in off. And I think that the biggest thing that would benefit John at this point is just filling out a little bit more. You saw it in a few poses last weekend, like the side chest and the back double bicep, where it looked like he was just a little bit flatter, and you can just sort of see that look in the muscle compared to how he's looked in previous contests as well. But his condition was second to none, and I'd prefer to see over-conditioned and a little bit flat than, you know, a little bit out of condition and just really full. So I think he's on the right side of at least last weekend, but I think if you can bring out a little bit more fullness with that conditioning, I think he's going to win this 212 show. Let me know your 212 predictions in the comments below as well. In Classic Physique, I have Danny Eunan winning this. It's a decent lineup, but Danny Eunan is a perennial top 6, top 7 Classic Physique Olympian competitor. And as you can see, this transformation from last year's Olympia, he should definitely win this show. He's probably going to be a top 5 guy at this year's Classic Physique Olympia. And I think he's got one of my favorite shapes in the IFBB out of any class. So I think Danny Eunan wins this hands down. Now, they've got every division here. I can't break them all down because there's too much to go on about in one video. They've got every division except for fitness here. They even including wellness. They've got that as well. So it's going to be a fantastic show. And I'm actually going to report on all the winners and the top 3s and stuff from all the other divisions if I can and have the time. So make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell button. That way you'll be notified of all my videos from the 2021 New York Pro. There's going to be pre-judging wrap-up, finals wrap-up, and some other videos I'm going to do with it as well. The link to the live stream is in the comments below, in the description below. So make sure you click that, get the live stream. I'm going to be watching along so I can give you guys the best review of this show and pre-judging as I can. So that's it for me. So for Xavier Wills, Desktop Bodybuilding, we are out.